a newsletter unlocks opportunities that you don't have through email marketing or even through other channels. A big one of those is promotional opportunities. Once you have a newsletter is really an asset, and you can use that asset in a variety of ways. It creates a space for you to do cross promotions with other brands, with other newsletters, with anyone else, other social media influencers, anyone that has an audience. Cross promotions are a free way to grow your audience. It's unlikely that let's say another newsletter, they're not going to do a cross. Let's say you're a clothing brand, a newsletter or blog or somebody that has an audience in the fashion space is unlikely to promote your sales emails. It doesn't make sense, or they're going to want money. But if you have a newsletter with an audience that overlaps with theirs, it's very possible that they say, hey, you can say, we'll mention you in ours, you mention us in yours, and both of you will grow your audience. And you can do that without having to send a standalone, it fits very nicely into a newsletter. A newsletter also can create revenue opportunities. If you can build a large or targeted audience around it that people want to reach, you can incorporate sponsorships. You're not going to sell a sponsorship into your sales emails. You probably don't want to send one-off emails to, promote other people's stuff. But if you have a newsletter, you can create a space where it may make sense to have a sponsorship. That's what's happened with my newsletter. I actually have 5 ads in each newsletter that I sell to people. And the irony is my audience is the one buying those ads in most cases, which is pretty interesting. Affiliate revenue, again, you have a way to reach people. So if you do want to partner with others and promote other people's products, maybe that are complementary to your product, this gives you a way to monetize them, again, without sending people one-off emails that they might be like, why am I getting an email about this other company's product? I didn't sign up to their list. But if they're looking at your newsletter and they're getting value from the newsletter, there are ways to incorporate that and add additional revenue. And then partnerships in general, again, it's another asset you have that you can leverage. So I thought it would be helpful to look at a couple examples of some people that are, brands, organizations, people that are doing this well. And so we'll go through a few of those. The Do Lectures is actually based in Wales, I believe. They have a conference. From a business standpoint, they do a conference, sort of TED Talks-ish. And then they also sell a variety of workshops on marketing and productivity and business and that kind of thing. Their newsletter is not, while they do send email marketing sort of one-off emails promoting those courses and that kind of thing, every week their email is called the Chicken Shed Chronicles. And it's a collection of interesting articles and stories about creative people and change makers. And it has nothing, they may mention their products and services in, conference and courses in there occasionally, but that's not the point. The point is to provide their audience of sort of creative people and change makers with interesting stories and inspiration and value. Super effective. David Hyatt is actually the founder of Do Lectures, and he also is the founder of the Hyatt Denim Company. He has the same approach with his denim company, and this was a quote he said that I thought really sums it up. The newsletter is the most important tool I have in building a global denim brand, second only to the sewing machine. That, again, if, and this speaks right to people who might go, okay, I get it, newsletters are important, but it doesn't fit what I do. Well, if it fits a denim brand, then it can fit what you do. Luke Smyers, he is a consultant who teaches consultants. His newsletter is called The Visible Authority. And again, this is a perfect example where, he's not sending a newsletter or emails just promoting his service. He's sending a newsletter that is all about sharing expertise, not only his own, but other articles and things that he finds that are going to help his target audience, which is consultants, get better at their business. And again, it's not that he won't do email marketing too. He will send the occasional one-off to promote his service or his workshops or whatever it is. but on a weekly basis, you're always going to get this newsletter, which is super, super valuable. It's not just email marketing. And he's, again, a good example. Like, the only reason I know about him, as opposed to a million other consultants that are out there, is because of this newsletter. It's not because of his email marketing. StoryThings is a strategy and content company. Their newsletter is just called StoryThings, and they are sharing a curated collection of interesting stuff about how to tell better stories, basically, and how to communicate. Super valuable, really good. It's all curated. I don't believe they actually create any of it. So we'll get into this down the road in terms of like how much time it takes to run a newsletter. But as a result, like, again, perfect example, I know the StoryThings agency because of this newsletter. There's a million creative agencies out there that I've never heard of, because their emails are probably just like, hey, check out the client that we got this week, or here's the new project that we did. Like, nobody really is going to sign up to be promoted to. Robinhood, I'm sure you've heard of. It's the investing app. Again, their newsletter, and this is a daily newsletter, I believe, called Robinhood Snacks, and they're basically sharing the financial news of the day. This is smart. This is valuable. They're not just sending emails that are saying, oh, here's our new feature, or have you upgraded to this, or, you know, they're like, what is our audience value? Let's give it to them, right? So they know that giving people financial news is valuable not only to their customers, but to people who are not yet their customers. And if every day they're getting value from Robinhood, at some, you know, they're able to promote their stuff, and then also some of those people are going to become customers. It may seem obvious in some ways, but if you think about it, most brands and most companies are not doing this. And my guess is, without knowing anything about anybody that's here, most of you probably are not doing a newsletter in this way, or certainly not consistently. To give you an idea of how this can really be applied to anything, Nick Cave is a musician, and unlike most musicians and creative artists who just send emails once in a blue moon to promote their shows or ask you to buy tickets or buy their album, he sends, I believe this is weekly, a newsletter called the Red Hand Files. Incredibly simple. In each issue, he just answers briefly a question that he gets from fans. And the questions can be about, you know, is it important to have friends? You know, like, the questions can be about his work, but it can be about life. It can be about his perspective on anything. It's fascinating. This newsletter has been massively successful. It was written about actually in the New Yorker a couple of years ago. And really not hard to do. And this, again, we'll get into this when we get into sort of content creation, but you can imagine why his fans would love it. He's giving something that they will then share and talk about. And it's as simple as, send me some questions and I'll send you a few paragraphs of an answer to each of them. Again, it can be done. It can work for anything. You know, the difference between Robinhood and Nick Cave is massive, and yet they're both sort of using the same newsletter tactic. Then myself, my newsletter is for the interested. Like I said, it is the hub of everything that I do. And it's really simple. You know, I do write one original blog post each week. That's usually what goes in the first thing. And then I share 4 other sort of curated stuff that's going to be of interest to my audience of creators and entrepreneurs. And it directly is the engine for sort of all of my business. There's countless more examples, but those should hopefully give you sort of a sense of how this can work. So, assuming I've hopefully convinced you to at least consider starting a newsletter at this point, the next obvious question is, okay, well, how do you do it? And what would your newsletter be if it's not going to be strictly promotional? And how do you create value? So I think one of the things that, and we'll have a worksheet for this that we'll give you at the end, but I think the best place to start, and we're going to go through it in detail in the next sessions, but the best place to start is to answer these 4 questions in order. The first question is, what's your goal? What do you want to accomplish? And I don't mean what's your goal for the newsletter or what's your goal for email, but I mean in general for your business, what are you trying to accomplish? Is it sales? Is it leads? Is it brand positioning? Is it whatever it is? Is it audience growth? Like, what are you trying to accomplish? Why are you doing anything, right? Once you have that in mind, the next question is, who do you need to reach to accomplish it, right? So no matter what the goal is, it's like, who are those people that you need to reach that are going to buy your product, or you want to be in your audience or support your cause or whatever it may be. Once you identify sort of who those people are that you need to reach to accomplish your goal, the next question is, what do those people value, right? Forget about what you have and what you currently do, but what do they value? What do they want in general? And it may not specifically align with your product. So I'll give you a quick example. I had a conversation. There was somebody who had a logo design business, and I had talked to him about this, and I was saying, you really need a newsletter, and he was like, but I design logos, and like nobody wants a logo newsletter, right? and once they get a logo, they certainly don't want a logo newsletter. And I said, you're absolutely right. You should not have a logo newsletter. And I sort of took him through this, and I said, what's your goal? And he said, oh, I want to get people to buy logos. And I said, who do you need to reach to accomplish it? And, we wound up sort of coming up with, he really needs to reach, sort of new startup founders or people that are like sort of in the early stages of their business, obviously people who are going to need a logo. And I said, what do those people value? And that's where it sort of takes a turn, right? Because someone who's starting up a business doesn't just value, oh, I need a logo or advice about logos. They need to know all sorts of stuff about starting up a business and getting going. A logo is not the only thing they need. So what I was saying to him is, I was like, your newsletter, and again, he doesn't have to create the content, it can be curated, but your newsletter should be designed to, I said, for example, if you had a newsletter that was designed to serve people who are in the first 2 months of launching a business, every one of those people would sign up in a minute because they're like, I'm just starting up and I need advice about this kind of stuff. But those people are also going to need a logo. So you're going to attract your ideal audience by creating a newsletter, not about logos, but about the sort of things that those people value, and those people happen to need a logo. So that's an example of sort of how to think about it. And then once you figure out sort of what those people value, the next question is, how can you provide that value to them in a newsletter on a consistent basis, right? So in the example I just gave, I said, look, you could very easily find some of the best articles, resources that other people have created about what to do in the first couple months of starting a company. And all you have to do is find them and share them. And that's going to be this valuable resource that's going to attract people who are starting companies and don't have a logo yet. And that's your ideal audience. And so that can lead to ultimately what you want and who you need to reach to accomplish your goal.